Today we are looking at the menstrual cycle. We will look at the 4 hormones that control the cycle. We will look at the changing in the thickness of the endometrium, the lining of the uterus, and we will also look at both A, a successful implantation, and B, no implantation at all. So in the first part of the menstrual cycle, we will look at the hormones. Now there are 4 hormones involved in the cycle. There is FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. There is LH, luteinizing hormone. There is estrogen and progesterone. These 4 hormones all interact together to control the full cycle. We will start at the top. FSH is released from the pituitary gland. FSH stands for follicle stimulating hormone, and as the name suggests, its purpose, its job, is to trigger the start of a follicle maturation, basically the formation of a mature egg ready for release. FSH is released in the pituitary gland and this matures an egg follicle. In the process of doing this, estrogen is released from that egg follicle. This will have a negative feedback loop affecting the FSH amount, decreasing it. As the estrogen levels rise at around day 12 to 14, there is a peak causing a sudden surge in LH. This LH triggers ovulation on day 14. This releases the egg. Once the egg has been released, the Graafian follicle becomes the corpus luteum. This Graafian follicle has emptied of its egg and is now called the corpus luteum. Its job now is to release progesterone. As it releases progesterone, this will inhibit further FSH release, thereby reducing the chance of an egg being released and allowing any egg that is on its journey to be successfully fertilized. If the egg is fertilized by a sperm, it becomes a zygote. This zygote will travel down the oviduct and implant into the uterus wall. As mentioned already, the hormones that are being released, estrogen and progesterone, will enable this process to occur. The estrogen has initially thickened the lining of the uterus, the inner endometrium, and has allowed it to become ready to cushion, so to speak, a zygote. Later releases of progesterone will capillarize and vascularize this thicker endometrium, basically preparing it with the relevant blood supply, lymph supply and nutrients to enable any successful zygote to carry on its growth to form an embryo and fetus. If implantation is successful, then the corpus luteum, which was created from the Graafian follicle, will release progesterone and will keep the levels high to let the body know that there is a potential baby growing. If these progesterone levels are kept high, then this of course suppresses FSH, which means no more eggs will be released. This means that there is no risk of another egg, and then of course another menstrual cycle, and then a shedding of any successful lining. If there is no successful sperm and egg meeting to form a zygote, then of course the corpus luteum no longer needs to produce progesterone. If this is the case, the corpus luteum dries up, disintegrates, and progesterone levels drop. These progesterone levels have been causing a negative feedback on FSH production. Once the progesterone levels drop, FSH is able to be re-released. This triggers the next follicle stimulation, and therefore we start the next cycle. At this point there is the period, there is the shedding of the lining of the uterus, and then there is the start of the next egg preparation. This is the full menstrual cycle.